I'm not sure where Anthony is. So what I want to talk about is the standards you set for yourself and the identity that you align yourself with. So we all make progress when we're on this. Once you start doing something, once you start dieting, once you start training and everything else, you start making progress. Um, at the beginning, everything is quite easy and it's quite dramatic. Um, because everyone who starts from doing nothing. You're going from nothing to something. That's quite a major shift, and you've already made quite a shift in your identity as it is. Because before you see yourself as someone who constantly fails, constantly does the wrong thing, doesn't know what they're supposed to be doing, and then within a few short weeks, you're someone who is actively learned the things they should be doing. They're actively doing them. They're being consistent, and they're seeing results. So that's actually quite a massive jump. Um, this is why you get so much early progress in the first month or so, but it's also the reason why people start fade. So you think you're starting from here. This is the level you're putting in when you start because you've been doing nothing. And then once you start, you're tracking your food, you're eating well, you're training 3 or 4 times a week. The difference between them two levels is huge. And all of a sudden you get this whoosh of results that catches up. Once it catches up, you that's when everyone starts getting this plateau, and it normally happens around the kind of 2 to 3 month mark. So there's all sorts of different levels to this, and the longer you stay in it, the more kind of levels you unlock, and the more you kind of start adding to your standards and your behaviors and the way that you operate. So as I said before, if you think of it as almost level zero, this is where everyone starts. You've got no structure, no training. You make reactive food decisions, and your habits are driven by convenience. You've got a mindset shift that happens early on. So your mindset at the beginning is you want to change, but you're not exhibiting any behaviors that support that change. So you're basically coming in at very, very low personal standards. The next level up from that is when you actually start. When most of you joined, and when you actually started doing something and you follow a plan. This is where you're starting to build some momentum. This is where quite a few of you are at the moment. You commit to doing something, you follow the structure, and all of these things start to fit in place. You're training consistently, you're tracking your food, you're planning ahead. Everything you do now is intentional. You're starting to think about things well, I'm doing this because of this, and this is the outcome. So your level of operating has already changed. You've already gone from there to there. Once you've been through that phase, this is where discipline starts to kick in, but it's also where you need to continue building it and continue adhering to it. And this is where the plateaus start. This is where people get stuck after a couple of months, mainly because, as I said in the earlier slide, you're starting from there, you're now operating at this level, and the results catch up. You can't keep operating at this level and expect the results to keep going up. Like it doesn't. That's not the way it happens. You can't just keep spinning this churning thing, and this just keeps going up alongside it. What you've got to do is you start from zero, you get to there, results catch up. If you want further results, you've now got to push yourself to there, and results keep catching up to you. You've got to be ahead of the results. You've got to start doing the things that the person who you're thinking about who has those results does. You don't gain them afterwards. You don't like you don't you don't earn them. You've got to do them first. So, and the reason why you hit this first one is this is your body adapting, which is actually a good sign. It means that your body is doing what it's supposed to do. So your results start to slow down, your strength gains slow down. How many times have you heard in the group now, I can't put my weight up this week. I had a bad workout, I can't get one more rep, or I haven't lost any weight this week, or I can't be bothered to go to the gym this week. All of these little frustrations start to creep in. And move this. It's not because the plan isn't working, it's because the plan at the level that you're executing it, you've already reaped all the results that you're going to get from that. So you actually need to think about how you evolve from that and move on. So you actually have to start operating at higher standards, whether that's how you treat your training or whether that's how you treat diet or your daily habits and the things that you say yes to, and more importantly, probably the things you say no to. Like, oh, where are you going with this one? What's he going to tell me I'm not allowed to do? Every time there's a next level, it feels harder and harder. If you think about, you're almost like climbing a mountain. The first few steps and the first bit of the incline and the first bit of the ascent is quite easy. The closer and closer you get to the top, the harder and harder it gets. But that means the more that you've got to do and the harder you've got to keep, the more you've got to keep refining what you do starts to go up. Because it's so hard, this is where people start to drift, people start to go backwards. And if more people were in this call, there would be more people sitting nodding their heads because they'll be recognizing why that's happened. And I think, my opinion, sometimes think there's a little bit of entitlement about it as well. It's almost like because you've done, you're full of eagerness, you're full of motivation in the first month or two, and you've done all that hard work and you've seen results, people almost feel like they deserve to keep going without doing the work that they did in the first 2 months. And that starts to drop off. And then they get a bit like, why is this not? Why am I not getting anywhere anymore? Because if you compare what you're doing now to what you were doing 2 months ago, it's nowhere near the same. You've drifted. You've started from nowhere. You've built momentum by doing those new things. You've then developed, hopefully, if you keep going, the discipline to keep pushing through and doing those things you need to do. But the next level of that is when your identity actually changes. And what I mean by that is how you see yourself, how you, the idea of who you think you are, like that persona of who you think you are has changed. Um, like you have to start thinking about yourself differently from the person that you were when you started. For a lot of people who get started, they can't do that, and that's why they fail straight away because they want to keep stuck in that same bubble that they're in, that entitled bubble. That, but I just want to stay being the same kind of person that I was. I don't want to change it. But you want the results, you want the outcome, but you don't want to actually see yourself as a different person. You want to see yourself as the same person, but you want what's over there, but you're staying over here. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Well, this is where you have to take a real kind of look at who you are and where you are and think, to get to the next level that you want to get at, you've almost got to put yourself in the person and think, what does that person do? How does that person operate? What are the behaviors that that person does? So someone comes in who's overweight, yeah, they lose a bit of weight at first because it's easy, but then they get stuck and they're like, well, how am I not over there? I've done the first half. Why can't I do the second half? Okay, think about what that person is. So think out your person with your six pack and put yourself in their shoes and think about how do they live their life? What choices do they make? What are the things they do every day as routine habits? What are the things that they say no to? Because if that's what they do, that's what it took to get what they've got. Then you've got to ask yourself, are you doing those things or are you prepared to do those things? Because if the answer is no, you're still going to be stuck in this identity and you're not going to get into that one. And if you're not prepared to get into that one, the results you want that that person has are going to be out of reach because you have to actually stop behaving in the way that that person would behave. So a lot of this is about raising your standards. It's about really thinking, what are the things, am I operating at high enough standards for what I want to be? And if a lot of people are really honest with themselves, it's probably no. Me included, I have to fight with this quite a lot because the higher up I go and the more that I want to get, I've got to start thinking about this quite a lot. And I've got to think about, what does the next version of Phil need to do? What does he look like? What does he, if I was me, like much more successful and this, that, and the other, what are the things that that person does and what are the things that that person doesn't do? Um, Give you an example of Rack. Well, Rack left a couple of weeks ago. Started off very, very well. Dropped a couple of stone. Actually, yeah, I think he dropped a couple of stone very early on. Went on a stag do, couldn't get back into it at all, and eventually just faded. The reason that he did was because he couldn't see himself as the person that he needed to be to get the results that he wanted, and he was very stuck in the things that he would allow in his life and the things that he would no longer accept. Didn't change. He just wanted to be the same, and the things that kept him too busy to do any of this was he couldn't say no to other people. He couldn't be selfish enough to say, sorry, I can't do this for you right now. I need to do this for me because my health's at stake. So whenever anyone came with, oh, can you do this for us? Can you do that for us? I need bother, need bother. I'll drop everything at a hat. And that was it. The thing that he needed to do was think, was the version of me that loses another 3 stone, keep spending every single night, my Saturdays and Sundays doing free work when I should be trying to get my steps in, trying to do my workouts, trying to plan and prep food. He wasn't he wasn't willing to accept any of those things. So if you're not willing to make those changes to fit into be the kind of person that you want to be, then you're not going to get the stuff that goes with it. Make sense?
Yep.
Apologies if this is starting to sound a bit preachy. So this is when you've got to look at those things, but this is when you've actually got to live it as well. Like I say, like I'm not perfect at doing this, but it's something I'm very, very aware of, and I try very, very hard at. And I don't get it right all the time, but I do try very hard at putting a lot of these things in place. You'll have seen in my stories, I keep banging on about how I get up at 5 o'clock and go for a walk every morning. That's not me showing off or going, oh, look at me, he gets up at 5 o'clock. I've had to think about, for me to get where I want to be in terms of my business and my health and my shape, what are the things I need to get done in a day? And that list has become ever increasingly longer that I haven't got time for all of it unless I get up at 5 o'clock and start work at 5 o'clock or go out for a walk at 5 o'clock. I don't really want to. The way I've thought about it is, yeah, but the person that I'm trying to become probably does that. They're probably the things that they have to say yes to. And the thing that saying no to is comfort. yes, I would like to have another 2 hours in bed, but I'm choosing to do this because I'm trying to raise my standards. I'm trying to live at a higher standard to allow myself to do other things. But back to the question you need to ask yourself, the way that you break through these plateaus is not how do I try harder? You can't just keep doing the same thing, but keep trying and hope that you're going to get a different result. You've got to become something else. You've actually got to step into something else and become that. You have to become a new version of you. Phil, you're probably one of the best examples of someone that I've actually seen do this through the months that you've been doing this. I think from where you were when you started to how you see yourself now and how you operate now, like Laura, you'll have seen a massive difference.
Yeah.
You yourself even as well.
Talking cheese.
So what does the next level version look like? It could be you're more consistent with your habits, what time do you go to bed, what time do you get up, how accurate you are with tracking food, how much harder do you push yourself in the gym. Now, we get the data to back this up. I know for a fact that Laura is pushing harder because when she puts her little screenshots in, it says 5, 6, 7, or 8 PBs. Like we know that's happening. Planning your meals more effectively, not getting caught out all the time, saying no to all distractions. This is probably the biggest one. Saying no to more things than you say yes to. The more things you say no to, the more you protect your own time and the more you start living within the things that you're trying to achieve. When you start doing the opposite of that and you start saying yes to more things, that's when you lose control because that's when everyone else takes over your life and you're not being accountable for yourself. How do you call this, Kev?
No. Sorry, apologies.
So protect your time more seriously. Think about the things that you need to do and make sure that they're prioritized. They can just be very, very small things, but when you build them all up, they make a massive difference. So I've said this a couple of times in the slides as well. A lot of people want the outcome, but they don't want to accept what that outcome means. They don't want to accept being the different person. Like someone wants to lose weight, but they still want to live the exact same way that they've always lived. Um, they want to eat the same foods all the time. They want to keep the same habits. They want to keep making the same decisions, but somehow they expect that they want that different result. Unfortunately, that's not the way it happens. The result you have is a reflection of the standards you operate at. And if you want to keep continuing to rise up, then you have to keep switching things and improving your standards. So the big question to ask yourself every time that you hit a stumbling block or a plateau or this feels like it's stopped working, actually think to yourself, what would the next level version of me be doing differently to what I'm doing now? And then start doing that. Once you start doing that, your results will take another wave of going up and follow you. I've used this example a few times. When I was on holiday in the summer, um, I was just at the point where I was just really starting to build this whole online thing. I was about 6 months in. I started this business mentorship where I was being taught how to run a business, how to be a better coach, and all of these sorts of things, and how to build success and everything else. When I first joined, and I told them I'm going to be on holiday for 2 weeks, they just looked at us like, "And you're taking your laptop, aren't you?" I thought they were taking the piss at first, They're like, no, I'm going on holiday. No, you've joined this. You've joined this to build a business. You're now self-employed. You're running your own business, right? But I'm going on holiday. No, you're not. You can't take days off when you're running your own business. You're taking your laptop with you. You'll do your check-ins when you're there. You've got clients. You'll do your check-ins for them when you're there. You'll join the calls, and you'll still do. And I was just, I can remember telling her, apparently I was going to bring my laptop to Mauritius with us. She's like, "Are you taking the piss?" Um, and I had to. I actually signed up 2 clients when I was on holiday. I did 2 sales calls. I did 1 sales call half an hour before we went out for dinner. I had to actually change the reservation that we had for the restaurant to make it half an hour later because your mate Mark wanted a call with us, and that was the only time I could fit him in.
Who was that?
Josh.
Oh, was it Josh?
It was half an hour before dinner. I was like, "Claire, we're gonna have to put the restaurant back. I've got a call."
Wow.
Like the example I want to use here was, yes, I'd taken a laptop. I was doing a couple of hours work every day, an hour in the morning before, and an hour just before we were getting ready. And I woke up one morning, we'd had a few drinks. I woke up one morning, I was like, right, it's 6 o'clock. No one's really getting up till 8 o'clock. Like, what do I do? Like, I'm tired. I'm a little bit hungover. What should I be doing? And I thought to myself, but what would the successful version of me be? Like, if I was to look at who I want to become in 2 years' time, like some really successful business owner, what would they be doing? Would they be lying in bed with a hangover? Or would they have set their alarm for 5 o'clock, took the laptop, gone at the beach, and done 2 hours work before everyone else gets up? So that's what I did. I didn't want to do it, but I thought, but that's the kind of behavior that the person that I want to become is probably doing. Like, they're the ones sitting in the restaurant with a cup of coffee doing work before everyone else gets up. So it's these kinds of, I'm not saying these are the things you have to do. I'm just saying you have to put yourself in the person that represents that person that you want. So, Mark, we want abs by the summer, don't we? We want to be like, we want to be photo shoot ready.
Yeah.
You want to be like what I was in December when I had my shots done.
Mm.
So, if you picture yourself like that, put yourself in that person in 3 months' time, what does that person do? How does that person operate? What are the behaviors that that person takes on? What do they say no to? And are you doing that now? Are you currently acting like that now?
As of Monday this week, yeah.
Good on you. Correct answer.
Yeah.
But if you do that, if you start believing that you're already that person, that your results will do that. But the second you let yourself slip back into being, I'm just thinking myself of the person that I am now, you won't. It'll just come back down again. So you've constantly got to keep putting yourself into that next person up to become that one. That all makes sense. Is that quite clear
Yeah.
for everyone? I'm trying to do it in a inspiring, motivating way. I hope I haven't done it in a way that it's got everyone going, "Oh God, is this what he's expecting from us?" The final piece of this is something that I want to look at next week, and I've already mentioned it, Mark. This is about your vision.
Mm.
When you think about that person you want to be, you can't do that unless you actually got a vision. So this is where you kind of got to stretch yourself a little bit to put together a vision of what it is you actually want to be. You all had one when you started. you all came in with an idea of this is not who I want to be now. I want to do this. There was already a vision there. The problem is once you get close to that vision, it doesn't become enough anymore to fully close it. You've almost got to keep resetting the goalposts. So as soon as you get close, as soon as you get close to the initial vision that you've set for yourself, you've got to move the goalposts again before you get there. You've got to keep that gap because that gap is what you're chasing. So as soon as you get close to it, you've already got to think, right, I'm nearly getting there. What's the next one? What does the next version look like? And that's when you've got to kind of constantly keep shifting sideways. What I would so that's something that I want to talk about next week. And the way that when I started the mentorship that I'm doing, this is what they got me to do. This is all about creating a vision plan. So that's what I'm going to talk about next week. It's about actually thinking ahead 6 months or 12 months. What does that look like? Where do I want to be? Who do I want to be? But then it's how do you write that plan that actually gets you there? So that's what I'm gonna go over next week, and then I can't make people do it, but I'd like to see who would like to give it a go. It's quite a simple exercise to do. It doesn't take very long, but it is quite useful because once you've mapped it out, you've actually given yourself a plan to follow. Okay. Any questions on this one? I hope, has anyone found it useful?
Yeah, very useful. I've got one question, Phil.
Yeah.
When people are in these cycles, so if example, so my first few months with you, and then obviously I've started this cycle now for the next 11 weeks. I don't know if anyone else experiences the same, but I might get 4 or 5 weeks in, feel great, but once like you get a few weeks down the line and you've been good for those few weeks and all that, it gets to maybe 4 or 5, maybe even 6 weeks in, it gets to a point where like what I could do with a diet break now because I've been on it for so many weeks. But like I need to keep going because I've got that goal in mind. What would be your advice for when you hit points like that where you just like you hit a point 5, 6 weeks in, you're like I can murder a pint or I can murder it this takeaway now. I think it's easy for the first couple of weeks, but when you're 4, 5, 6 weeks in, and you're like it gets harder and harder to see those no's to certain things, because your body's been on that cycle for so many weeks, and then you know you're halfway through, so it's one of those where like what would your advice be if you hit it like that when you're 5, 6, 7 weeks in?
Depends how hard the hurdle is, depends how
Yeah.
big it is, and it depends how much you want the result. You can have the diet break, you can plan it in, you can have the takeaway, you can have the beers, but you've got to be able to accept that what it's going to do is slow you down. It's not gonna kill all your progress, but it's potentially going to add another at least a week back. It shouldn't, but if you have a splurge like that for one day, it never ends up one day. It never ever, like how many people actually get back on the very next day? It never happens. So by the time you've put potentially 2 days away, you've then got 2 days to try and undo the 2 days. There's 4 days just to get you back on even keel. Then you've got 2 or 3 days to try and build a bit of momentum to get back into starting to lose again. There's your week.
Mm-hmm.
There's your week lost. So one thing I got told was, and this has stuck with us for ages, the harder something gets, the closer you are to a breakthrough. So once things get really, really difficult, the bit that you're trying to get to is just on the other side of that difficult patch. And if you keep putting pressure on it and you keep going through the hard bit, that is when the breakthrough happens, and that is when you get it. Because the harder something gets, the more your brain tries to dissuade you from keeping going, because it senses danger. It wants you to be safe. It wants to keep you in comfort. So yeah, the first few weeks of a diet are piss easy. Like you said, for me, it happened at 6 weeks. 6 or 7 weeks is when things get really hard
Yeah.
for me. You could make the diet less aggressive, but then it's just going to take longer. I would rather stay aggressive and get results quickly because I don't like being in a diet. I would rather just go for it and get it over with rather than semi-restrict myself, but for months and months and months on end. I would just rather just go in, get it done, and get out. Yeah, if you can take that, if you can take that line and think, whenever things are really, really difficult, like I've just scheduled a reel to go out next week on Instagram, and it's about that. It's about me being told whenever, because I have some weeks where I'm banging my head against the desk and I'm like, this is really hard. This is really hard. But I just keep getting told over and over again, yeah, but it's because you're so close to getting to the next level. And it's true because I keep pushing through, then all of a sudden, like everything just goes north. Everything does get better. You've just got to make the decision if like what is it you want? Like if you want it, you keep battling against it. But if you've got that in the back of your mind, that if you know when something gets hard, then it's working, that you're going to get that reward at the end of it, then that makes you keep going. It's like if you get hungry, you know you're in a deficit. If you go to bed hungry, you know the amount of food you've had for that day is probably right to lose weight. When I read some people's check-ins and I say, how's your hunger been this week? And they're like, oh, I'm fine. Like, really? You shouldn't be fine. Like, your body's trying to get rid of energy that you're not giving it. So it's having to break the rest of your body down to give it that. You should be hungry. So it rings alarm bells for me when people say they're not hungry and they're on a diet. I'm like, right, maybe you're not on a diet. Maybe you're not in a deficit that you think you are.
Well, that makes me feel better because I've went to bed a bit peckish every night this week.
Oh, I feel bad.
Get used to it, mate.
I mean, Phil, you've had a few weeks as well. In fact, Laura, you've had as well, where you've kind of gone, I'm starting to get a bit sick of this now, but I know it's not much longer. I'm just going to dig in and keep going. Like you haven't gone, oh, can I have a takeaway this week? You've gone like, nah, 2 weeks left. I don't like it, but I'll keep going.
For me, I knew if I said, right, can I have a takeaway? Exactly what you said, I would never have got back on track the next day. It would have been, oh, well, I've had a takeaway. I might as well have this. I might as well have that. And then I'd be a week down the line and spiraled out of control.
Yeah.